Are you a provider who's considering either getting onto the food program or getting off of the food program? Well, today is the video for you. On this daycare day, I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of the National Food Program here in the United States. Hey Glue Sticks, Sarah here from Work Life Glue, back for another daycare day video where every Friday I post a daycare related video. Now this video actually comes from one of you Glue Sticks who emailed me and asked if I would do a video on the pros and cons of the food program. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. So let's just jump right in. If you guys are unfamiliar with what the food program is, I will put a link below describing it in more detail, but basically here in the United States we have a national food program that helps subsidize daycares if we provide healthy foods, and that goes by their guidelines of what healthy foods are. The regulations keep changing. Now you have to have a whole grain once a day in one of your meals. You have to have like certain grams of sugar under that for cereals and yogurts and things like that. You have to have a certain amount, certain portion size for depending on the age of kids, and you have to have certain types of foods like grains, fruits, veggies, meat, that kind of stuff, or protein I guess I should say, offered depending on what the meal is. And like I said, I'll link to that below. I'm not going to go into that here, but I just wanted to kind of give an overview of what it is. I personally was on the food program for almost 2 years when I first started, and after I had my baby and my maternity leave, I got off of it. So at the end of this video I'm going to talk about why I got off of it and that kind of stuff, but I thought I would just get into the pros and cons, and if you think of any more, leave them in the comments, because I hope this video will be really helpful for people to decide whether they want to get on it, or if they're on it, of whether they should get off, or if they're not on it but wondering, maybe they'll decide to stay off and feel good about their decision. I just really want you guys to be informed. So the biggest reason why you would get on the food program is money. To feed many kids every day for a couple meals and a snack can be very expensive. So obviously if you can subsidize that with money, it is awesome. And I just want to kind of give a breakdown of how much money you would earn. So there's two different tiers on the food program. There's tier 1 and there's tier 2. Tier 1 is for lower income areas. So if you're in like a low income school district, or your family itself meets certain guidelines, and this may differ by state, I'm not exactly sure, you would be in tier 1 and you would receive more money per meal or snack. Now if you're in tier 2, that's just like everybody can be tier 2, but you have to like qualify to become tier 1. So let's say you're tier 1 and you serve breakfast, lunch, and snack every day for 5 kids. And let's say on a typical month, that's 20 days you're serving that. So for breakfast on tier 1, you would get $1.31 for breakfast. For lunch, you would get $2.46, and this is per child. And then for snack, you would receive 73 cents per child. So for the day, for one kid, it would be $4.50. For 5 kids, for the whole day, you would get $22.50. So for the whole month, for 20 days, for 5 kids, for breakfast, lunch, and snack, you would receive $450 on tier 1. That's the higher one that you have to qualify for. For tier 2, for breakfast, you receive 48 cents for one kid. For lunch, you receive $1.48 for one kid's lunch. And then for snack, for one kid's lunch, you receive 20 cents. So per day, for one kid on tier 2, you would receive $2.16. For the whole day for 5 kids, you would receive $10.80. And then for the whole month, for 20 days, for 5 kids on tier 2, for breakfast, lunch, and snack, you would receive $216. And so that's just to kind of give you guys, you know, to compare. So for tier 1, for the same amount of time, for the same amount of kids, you would receive $450. For tier 2, same amount of time, same amount of kids, $216. So you could receive more than less than half on tier 2 than you would on tier 1. So the money, you can decide if that would be worth it to you. $216 if you had that many kids for that many days compared to $450. I mean, that's a big difference, but the money is definitely the reason most people do this. Most people wouldn't do it for the other reasons, so that's definitely one I have to mention. Another reason why you might join the food program or stay on the food program is because of the support. So to join the food program, at least in my experience, every state has different like companies or corporations, or I don't really know what you call them, programs, I guess, that the food program works through. So you can kind of choose. I don't know if every state has multiple options, but at least in Minnesota we have a couple. And so you sign up through them, and they're the ones who pay you at the end of the month once you submit your claims. And they offer training and support, and you can reach out to the person you're assigned to and ask for help. And they also might give freebies. So I got like a cookbook from them, which was really helpful. And they give things when they come to visit. So the support can be a really nice benefit. Another nice thing is the training. So every year you have to do a training, at least in Minnesota. Like I said, I don't know for every state how it works, but in Minnesota we have to do a training, 2-hour training, I believe, every year on the guidelines. But that can be nice because you're getting more information on how to follow the food program, why it has the regulations it has, how to follow them better, what things to look for, what foods fit in, and that kind of thing, which can be helpful. And then another pro of being on the food program is that you can advertise it as a feature of your program, give parents the reassurance that you're serving healthy meals, that you're regulated, and that, you know, somebody's checking in on you. So it is a feature of your program, so it can help you get parents to join your program. Okay, so now for the cons, at least from my perspective. So one of the pros was the money, but that can also be seen as a con. If you are trying to keep your expenses as high as possible and your income as low as possible for tax time, if you're on the food program, you have to pay in more tax. Now, Tom Copeland and others will tell you it's always better to make more money. But as providers, come tax time, it can really suck to have a higher income because you have to pay in more. And that, even that little difference could put you in a different income bracket. So you may be taxed more heavily on your whole income percentage-wise if it puts you over that threshold. So that's something you'd want to talk to your accountant about. But sometimes you don't always want to make more money because then you do have to be taxed on it. So that's just one thing to think about, and, you know, look at your income and see, you know, if that would mean a lot more taxes come tax time. Another big reason why people get off of the food program or don't join is because of the paperwork. You have to keep track of what kids are there for what meals, what exactly they ate. And it's just, it can be really overwhelming. It doesn't sound that overwhelming, but when you already have so much stuff you have to do in the day, and your main thing to do is just to keep kids alive and help them learn, any extra you add on top of that can be very stressful and overwhelming, especially if you're having a hard day, or you're having new kids come, or you have a weird schedule where kids come and go, and trying to keep track of who was here when, and like, you're not trying to cheat the system, but maybe you messed up somewhere and then they might not pay you, and it can just become overwhelming pretty quickly. Another big con is the random visits. I think they come quarterly, I want to say, and it's totally unannounced, totally random. They may come like 2 weeks in a row. They may come, you know, every 3 months on rotation. You just don't really know, so you have to be prepared at any time, obviously, because you are following the rules. But it can be kind of stressful, I guess, to know that somebody could walk in at any moment and basically ruin your day. At least from my perspective, they would be here for a long time trying to talk to me. I never knew they were coming, so I couldn't prepare the kids. And if you work with little kids, you know that any change in your routine causes massive chaos and lots of stress. So having somebody randomly come that they don't know, trying to ask you questions, and you like were trying to just do whatever you were supposed to do, it can really throw off your whole day. It was one of the biggest reasons why I quit. I just hated that. In Minnesota, we already have yearly licensing visits. I don't really like adding 4 more visits on top of it. It just is really stressful, even though I'm following the rules, but it just threw off the whole day, and my day is already stressful enough. I don't really like adding more to it if I can get away from it. One of the benefits is the training, but one of the cons can also be seen as training. Here in Minnesota, we already have to do 16 hours of training, and it's very strict about what types, and so trying to get it to fit in and do the right ones is already a big task. So having to add another training in there can be kind of stressful. Granted, you can count that towards your training for licensing, but just having another restriction on what kinds of trainings and when they are and that kind of thing is another downside to being on the food program. Another con is just the time and energy it takes to make sure you're fitting the guidelines. I'd say once you're getting into it and you're following it, it's not so hard, but I know, I think it was last year, they made a lot of changes, so the providers who had been on the food program for a long time had to really like analyze what they were offering, did it fit within the guidelines, and make a lot of changes. And all that time spent at the grocery store looking at labels and that kind of thing can be a lot of work, especially if you have little kids with you. And also just for me, it was a lot of stress of like, okay, I'm gonna serve this casserole. How much protein is in each serving? Because I gotta make sure if the food program comes, I can prove, you know, that each kid is getting this amount. And so I'd be sitting there like, oh my gosh, am I following the rules? Am I not? Like, I'm trying to, but it can be kind of stressful. And like, how much banana does each kid have to have? How many ounces of blueberry? Like, that part of it just can be kind of stressful because the restrictions are so clear, but cooking isn't always as clear, especially when you're making an entree or something with multiple food groups inside of it, like lasagna or something like that, tater tot hot dish, even like tacos, like how much meat to grain and that kind of thing. And each child's age group, infant, toddler, preschooler, school ager, they all have different guidelines. So that can be really stressful to make sure you're giving each kid the right amount of each food group at each meal. And then lastly, another con of the food program is just having somebody else that you have to alert of your days off. If you're sick, if you're gonna be on a field trip, if you're leaving part of the day to go to the park or whatever. I know of providers who went to the park and then had like kind of like a nasty note at the door when they got back saying the food program was here. Well, it's like, I'm not gonna not go to the park because the food program could show up at any time. So it's just kind of stressful. You already have to let parents know when you're not gonna be there. You already have, you know, your licensor to tell if you have a state where there's licensing, and you may have others you even need to let know. So having to let the food program know all these things at the same time, especially if you're sick. Like, last thing you wanna do when you're sick is like make sure your food program knows not to come that day. And a lot of times you don't think about it and then they may get angry at you. So that's just another thing of people you have to let know about your life and your whereabouts. Sorry about the noise. We're doing some landscaping and I need to get this video done. So I just wanted to talk about me personally. I was on the food program, like I said, for about 2 years, but I ended up getting off of it because I got off of it right around the same time that they made all the changes to the whole grain and the yogurt. Even though I was already following that, I almost always give whole grains if I give any kind of grain. And I already just do plain Greek yogurt with a little honey for the kids, so it's not like it's chock full of sugar, and I don't even give cereal. I don't give a lot of sweets at all. So it wasn't really that, it was just the amount of work it was becoming, and the stress that I already had a lot of stress, and I was gonna have a new baby, and I just didn't want people dropping in and disrupting our day. I already have buses coming and going in my daycare, and I don't need more stress. And for me, I was on tier 2, so I was getting about $250 to $300, which isn't nothing, but to me it just wasn't worth all of the stress and the paperwork and all of that kind of stuff for me personally. Now, had I been on tier 1, I would have stayed on it. I think, you know, that would have paid for a lot of our groceries, which would have been awesome. And, you know, I may get back on it one day if money's tight, or I just, you know, maybe that could go towards a vacation or something like that. But right now, in the season of life I'm in with 2 little kids, I've got a YouTube channel, my husband works crazy hours, like I don't need more on my plate than I already have. And so I just decided, let's just be done for right now. So those are the pros and the cons of the food program. I would love to know if there are even more, especially specific to your area. Like I said, I'm in Minnesota, so this is based on my experience and what I know about the food program, but that could be different from place to place. So I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you liked it, and if you have other ideas for Daycare Day videos, please leave them in the comments, or you can always email me at sarah@worklifeglue.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.